Berks Community Health Center Presents on BCTV is supported by the Berks Community Health Center.
Hi, and welcome to Berks Community Health Center Presents. My name is Debbie Hartranft, and I'm the Chief Community Relations Officer at Berks Community Health Center. So immunization is a global health and development success story saving millions of lives every year. Vaccines reduce risks of getting a disease by working with your body's immune system and natural defenses to build protection. When you get a vaccine, your immune system responds. We now have vaccines to prevent over 20 life-threatening diseases, helping people of all ages live longer, healthier lives. With me today to have the vaccination conversation is Jeannie Stephen, a CRNP at Berks Community Health Center, and Kay Miley, an LPN at Berks Community Health Center. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
It's great to have you again. You're becoming my regular guest here.
We're regulars here.
That's right. That's right. So, Jeannie, I know you wanted to start the conversation with a little bit of history.
Yeah, let's start with a little bit of history. I think we have a PowerPoint that we could show.
Yeah.
If we have that available. All right, let's go back all the way to the 1500s, and that's the beginning of man trying to combat disease, and it started with the smallpox disease. What happened was smallpox was very contagious. You would get a high fever, you would get rash, you would get sores in your mouth, it would go down into your throat. It caused pneumonia and it caused death. It was really a devastating disease that was very contagious. So that's really the beginning of when we started to develop vaccines. It wasn't really until 1796 that Dr. Edward Jenner developed the first smallpox vaccine. And what he did is he actually took a little piece of the germ and he injected it into children and adults. And then what that did is it kind of told the body that, hey, there's something bad going on here. I need to make antibodies and develop immunity. And that's actually how immunity started, from the smallpox vaccine. Then we go into 1806. And when you think about vaccinations, it's really so important that the entire community or the population as a whole gets vaccinated, because we really need to kind of stamp out this disease and get everybody vaccinated to prevent the spread. And that's where our leaders come in. So as far back as Thomas Jefferson and even Napoleon Bonaparte took part to endorse the vaccination of smallpox. And actually, eventually smallpox was eradicated. We don't, in the United States, even vaccinate for smallpox anymore. Then we move to 1885, and there's Louis Pasteur. Louis Pasteur was not a doctor, but he was a scientist. He developed the rabies vaccine, and he also developed what is known as pasteurization. And that's just a method that he developed to prevent bacteria from growing into certain types of foods. So when you see your milk carton and it says homogenized and pasteurized, that is thanks to Louis Pasteur. Then we go to 1918, and this is World War I. World War I, we saw what they called the Spanish flu, and it was actually influenza, or the flu as we know it. The flu was extremely devastating, especially to the soldiers. Many, many died from it. So then the development of your annual flu vaccine began in 1918. And when you think about it, that's why, again, it's really important to see your family doctor and get your yearly flu shot. We go to 1967, things are really taking off with vaccines. The World Health Organization is getting involved, globally, going across continents, countries, and really getting people, children especially, vaccinated everywhere in the world. And then we just really get better and better with our vaccines. We combine vaccines now. So for example, we have measles, mumps, and rubella is one vaccine. We have tetanus, diphtheria, pertussis is one vaccine. We've had the development of polio, hepatitis B vaccine, and many others. So really, when you think about it, fundamentally, vaccines have just shaped the way that we've done medicine today, eradicated many diseases, and overall, mankind have benefited from the development of vaccines in general.
That was really interesting. You know, I never thought of the flu vaccine being around since the early 1900s. That just was very, very enlightening. And, you know, you think it's more of a modern day type thing. And
a lot of patients have phobia or fear of getting the flu shot. That's the most common one that patients decline.
The flu vaccine.
And it's kind of comical to say to them, well, we've been working with this vaccine since the early 1900s.
Yeah, it's 100 years. Wow. That was really enlightening. Thank you so much for sharing that brief history, but you know, it really shows you how long we've been putting this in place to try to help save lives.
Right, and again, when you think about it, in most vaccines, an example is the flu vaccine. It's just a tiny piece of a dead germ, a tiny piece that, you know, is put into your body to help your body develop the antibodies and develop immunity.
Wow. Well, so I've used the term probably immunization and vaccination interchangeably and probably shouldn't have. Kay, can you kind of tell us a little bit about the difference there?
We do tend to use those words interchangeably. When we say vaccine, we're talking about the actual medication, whether it's injected, taken orally, administered through your nose. The vaccine is the medication. Immunization is the process that you go through between getting the vaccination and then your body building the immune response to the disease, the pathogen.
That makes sense. Okay. I did not know that. Learning a lot today, right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the basics of vaccines and the ingredients. You highlighted a little bit there, Jeannie, on taking
the ingredients of a vaccine. Yeah, and when we first talk about a vaccine, it's the starting point is the Food and Drug Administration. So really, vaccines go through a very rigorous testing process. They have to be researched and licensed to, administer a vaccine. So it's very stringent testing that a vaccine goes through, and it could take even, over a year. I know with the COVID vaccine, because of the pandemic, that was a little bit more of an emergent process, but the safety and efficacy of a vaccine, it really takes the forefront, and they would not patent a vaccine if it wasn't completely safe. When you talk about ingredients in a vaccine, so the ingredients in a vaccine, first of all, are going to be the little piece of the germ that is going to cause the immunity. And then vaccines, of course, they do need other ingredients because they have to be long-lasting. So there's preservatives in vaccines. An example of a preservative in a vaccine is called thimerosal. And it's just to help stabilize the vaccine, give it some shelf life, make it, into a form that we can safely put into our body. So other ingredients are added into vaccines, but they're all safe and they help to bolster our immunity.
So does every vaccine have a little piece of that?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
not necessarily. So I will say that, for example, so that's your typical vaccine.
Okay.
But I will say that the COVID vaccine is a little different. It's more of what we call a messenger type of vaccine, where it actually just sends your body a message.
Okay. I just wanted to bring something up just a moment ago when you were talking about the FDA approval and the COVID vaccine.
Yes.
So the approval process was much shorter than it normally is for a vaccine. But that does not mean they took shortcuts and they didn't do
Exactly.
it properly.
Right, exactly.
How did they shorten it? How would you explain that to
Well,
somebody?
honestly, I would say because it was considered a pandemic, and when you talk about pandemics is something that's worldwide versus an endemic, which is something that's just, it's got boundaries. So every country in the world was affected by the coronavirus, as we all saw in the news. And I believe what really helped is we worked together as globally to get the vaccine, and scientists and doctors worked together to really quickly get the vaccine approved.
Okay.
So it took just a tremendous effort from multiple people.
I know that's
Sort of like all hands on deck.
Yeah.
In an emergency situation, you send the emergency response team.
I know there were so
when-
many people hesitant because of it occurring so quickly, when in reality it occurred quickly because of just the full.
The partnership
Global-
of the scientists, the
Yeah.
people who obtain the funding, the government,
Yeah.
the World Health Organization.
I think that's an important point to make. Absolutely. So there's different types of vaccines. Can we talk a little bit about that?
So there are several different types of vaccines when they're developing the vaccine to be given to the population. The two most common types are inactivated vaccines and live vaccines. So some examples of the inactivated vaccines that you may recognize by name are the polio shot, the hepatitis A and B vaccines, the human papillomavirus, tetanus and diphtheria vaccines. With the inactivated vaccines, the germ or the pathogen is inactivated or killed during the process of making it. It's introduced into your body, and these vaccines typically take multiple doses. The first time you receive the vaccine, it's an introduction, and the protective immunity typically doesn't start until the second dose. You'll notice, like with the DTaP vaccine, your kids will receive 4 or 5 doses before they're even starting school. With the hepatitis B vaccine, that's a vaccine given to children, but then in adulthood, with testing or without testing, you may find the immunity dissipated and you start the adult hepatitis B series. With the live vaccines, that's scary for patients to hear or for people to hear you're getting a live vaccine. It's a very small piece of the germ or the pathogen. It's so small that it won't actually cause the disease in your body, but when introduced to your body, it causes a rapid and more prolonged immunity. Some common live vaccines is the varicella, which is our chickenpox vaccine, MMR, like Jeannie said earlier, measles, mumps, rubella. And if you think about those, typically you get 2 doses in childhood at 12 months and 4 years old, and that immunity usually lasts throughout adulthood.
Okay.
So those are the most 2 common types.
Yeah. So let's talk about the vaccines, who and when.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people think when you talk about vaccines, you think, oh yes, my child was vaccinated and we're good. But really, when you talk about vaccines, it's really from childhood, actually from birth. And sometimes people don't realize when you're born, right there in the hospital, you're getting your first hepatitis B vaccine. So you are being vaccinated day 1 to 2 of at birth. And then it just moves on from there. Preteens, teenagers are going to get different vaccines than children do. For example, we would like the teenagers to have the HPV vaccine. Meningitis vaccine is important. And as you can see, our chart up here, it looks very busy, but these are all vaccines that you would get all through your childhood. So
I think that was the adult one. Okay, I put the child and adolescent
okay,
one
so
on.
we're looking at, as I said from the beginning, you're getting your hepatitis B vaccine, and then you go on, and it's every 2 to 4 to 6 months. You go on and you get your DTaP vaccine, rotavirus. You get your pneumonia vaccine, a polio vaccine, measles, mumps, and rubella. Then you're going to move on and get your hepatitis A, meningitis, and the HPV is also highly recommended vaccine. HPV prevents many different types of cervical cancers.
Right.
So very important. And then we have that for the kids and the teenagers, and you think, okay, I'm good as an adult. I'm a healthy adult. Why would I need to get vaccinated? So another really important reason to go see your family doctor is because, yes, we definitely need some adult vaccines because, as Kay had mentioned, vaccines kind of wear off over time, and you're going to get a little variation of, say, the DTaP vaccine turns into a Tdap vaccine as an adult. You're also going to want to get your pneumonia vaccine. You're going to want to get your hepatitis B vaccine. There's also certain classifications of people that are going to need a little different vaccinations than other groups of people. For example, if you're in the military, you're going to need certain vaccines. Healthcare workers, we're going to need extra doses of hepatitis B because we are exposed more to bloodborne pathogens. If you're a pregnant woman, it's advised that you get your Tdap vaccine because that helps to actually protect your baby from whooping cough. So if you have some compromise in your immune system, you're going to want to talk to your doctor about vaccines that you need. So it's not just childhood and you're done. Vaccines are all throughout your lifespan. And, you know, of course, the perfect example is the COVID vaccine that we all needed.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess we're reaching a point where that COVID vaccine will be once a year, I'm assuming?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
that's a great question, and I don't believe we have the answer yet.
We don't have the answer yet. And as of right now, Berks Community Health Center, we're not administering vaccines. Hopefully we'll have updates by the fall.
Right.
Where we stand right now is everybody from 6 months old, infants at 6 months old and up, should receive at least one updated dose of the COVID vaccines. We call them the bivalent. And if you haven't been vaccinated yet, in most situations there are some special circumstances, but you get the bivalent dose and you're done for now, because that bivalent dose contains the original strain of COVID that started this whole pandemic, and then the Omicron and the more recent
All the variants, yes, yes. It's certainly something everybody was very aware of in the last couple of years, and but yeah, my assumption is, and maybe it's a bad assumption, is that at some point it's just going to your COVID, just like your flu vaccine and some of the other annual vaccines, you'll get your COVID and once and done, hopefully. So let's talk a little bit about the concept of community immunity.
Yeah, it's very important, and the coronavirus is the perfect example of community immunity. When you think about it, the pandemic started, I believe it was March of 2020, where it really hit. We saw so many sick people and hospitalized people from COVID. We were all just as much in the dark as really the public about COVID. We were all learning about it together. And Kay and I can remember really sick patients. I had one gentleman who was a patient of mine, 45 years old, came into the driveway and he had a high fever and a sore throat. We knew that COVID was out there. We sent him to the emergency room. Next thing you know, he's in the hospital on a ventilator. So people were getting so sick.
And 45, you said, right?
Yes, and healthy, and very healthy.
Yeah.
Thank goodness he did survive. But that is just an example of how important it was that we developed this vaccine. So when you look at it now, the vaccine has gone around the community. People were willing to get vaccinated, to trust their healthcare providers. And I remember when the vaccine first came out, I personally was very excited to get vaccinated. I almost felt like it was Christmas, that I was getting a present. I was so happy that they developed the vaccine because we had so many patients that were ill. And it took people time to come around. Some people were a little more resistant, but eventually, as more of the community got vaccinated, we were able to tamp down the virus. And although the COVID vaccine doesn't prevent COVID, but it dramatically decreases how sick you're going to get and are you going to end up in the hospital. When you think about it now, we are almost a little over 3 years post-pandemic, and look how far we've come because of the COVID vaccine. We don't have to mask anymore. People are able to be around each other. So the COVID vaccine has just really tremendously shaped us for the better worldwide.
So that's that community immunity.
Exactly.
Enough people have received the vaccine, have some immunity. I mean, they're not 100% immune
Exactly.
from it, but
Exactly. Not 100% immune, but enough of the community. And when you think about it, when I got vaccinated, I'm protecting Kay. When Kay got vaccinated, she's protecting me.
Because of the vaccine that I opted to get right away, me and Jeannie and many healthcare workers, but it allowed us to work in the front line. And I went to every COVID clinic that I could. I worked at every testing site that I could, and I went through the first 2 years of the pandemic. I didn't get sick, and because of that, I was able to help. I got COVID last year, so in my third year I did. And that's because we kind of all let our guard down. But again, that's what community immunity is all about. The infection's out there, and it can't just be us healthcare workers being vaccinated. We can pass it without being sick, but we need everybody out there to sort of try to get vaccinated at the same time to eradicate it.
So I just want to take a moment and thank you and all the healthcare workers out there, because it really was tremendous how everybody just, tried to protect themselves, but were still there for the patients and for the community. It was really very heartwarming to see. I saw it from my own organization, and I was very, very proud. So thank you, and thank you to all of you, the healthcare workers and first responders out there. I know my mom got COVID, and she was home and she was very ill, and the EMTs came, and I thought to myself, oh my goodness, they're exposing themselves, but they did it, and happily, so thank you. Vaccine hesitancy.
Yes.
Let's close on that.
Yes. Go for it, Kay.
I start with the flu shot. I mean, the COVID vaccine, that caused so much anxiety, and it just took. You just had to continue to educate the public, and I think we all the majority of us came to an understanding. But with the flu shot, every year, people start to get nervous and anxious, and I think that they imagine we're drawing up a vial of the flu virus and putting it in your body. Patients' biggest or most common reason as to why they're refusing or declining to get vaccinated, to me anyways, is because they don't want to get sick from the vaccine. So my general speech to my patients in that situation is, when you receive a vaccination, your immune system is busy. It's doing its job. but you're letting your guard down against other common illnesses, the cold, the strep throat, other germs. So when my patients get a vaccine, I tell them, you're not going to get sick from this vaccine. However, your immune system is weak, so wash your hands. Stay away from sick children, sick people. Just be conscious of that, and you'll come out fine.
Yeah.
The flu shot does not cause you to get the flu or pneumonia, and that's a very common misconception.
Absolutely.
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel some things occur if a neighbor had a bad experience or a family member had a bad experience, then that's another reason for vaccine hesitancy. And it's true with mostly the flu shot is what I encountered, and then also with the COVID vaccine. So family members, if they had a bad experience, then it's kind of a, within that kind of storytelling atmosphere that, oh, it made me sick, and that's one reason that people have some hesitancy. Another reason too is social media. There's a lot out there. We have so many choices in television. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have news outlets that I would say are not particularly reliable anymore. And anybody can convey any information they like to, and it's not necessarily accurate information. Bottom line is, come talk to your family doctor. At Berks Community Health Center, we have new patient appointments. Come get your physical, talk to your doctor about your fears. And I will say that we are here to help you. It's our job to provide you with education, answer any questions, and come see us and get your full physical and get your vaccines updated.
Good closing. We had a session a few months ago where we talked about primary care and preventative care and that trust, that relationship. So when my husband and I went to our PCP, do you recommend it? Yes, and I trust our providers at Berks Community Health Center, and they were promoting it. We're getting it, and I've gotten everyone since. It's just that relationship you build and that trust you build with your PCP is so important. It really helps you through all this.
Exactly.
Before we close, I just wanted to mention that National Health Center Week is coming up in August, where across the country we're celebrating community health centers like Berks Community Health Center. And we will be having two celebrations. The first one is at our Oak Brook location on August 9th. It's a Wednesday from 4 to 6. And the second one is Saturday, August 12th at 838 Penn Street from 10 to 1. Music, fun, resources, community resources from our community partners, giveaways, refreshments, and we will have the COVID vaccine available as well. So please come out and join us for those festivities, and I hope you join us next month for Berks Community Health Center Presents.
Berks Community Health Center Presents on BCTV is supported by the Berks Community Health Center.